Hey everybody, how's it going? So this is going to be a ramble on scale of Battletech miniatures, and what you're looking at here are three different scales of miniatures. And that's the kind of the confusing thing, especially because it's not necessarily that obviously labeled when you're looking at it online. In person you can tell for sure, but online it's not. Now, starting off with this Hunchback here, this is a plastic model from the starter set. It's basically a single piece attached to its base model, which is fine. It is basically in the same scale as your pewter models, those three there. These three pewter models are actually old. These are from Ralpartha days of the 90s, but the iron and metal stuff is basically the same scale. Now this is what I call standard Battletech scale. I don't really know what the terms are for all the scalings, but I do know there is a difference. So these guys I call standard, and if you look at it, these two mechs aren't too far away in weight class. This is a heavy and this is a medium, and you can see the Hellbringer is a little bit bigger. It feels a bit bulkier when you look at the legs, for example, and whatnot, but they're scaled correctly. We take the Hellbringer and we put its feet in line with the Battlemaster, which is an assault mech and therefore a bigger mech, and it's appropriately scaled for that size. So the scaling is all well with each other, and of course we know in a lot of miniature games out there the scaling isn't going to be 100% accurate in its own game range. For example, Space Marines in 40k. They're, in the fluff, these big, towering super soldiers, right? Clad in power armor, and they stand a good deal taller than an Imperial Guardsman. When you look at their models, they stand height-wise essentially the same. It's just the case of the miniatures. So it's going to be basically the same deal here, but these all are in scale with each other. So I'm telling you this because if you pick up the starter set and then eventually want to expand your collection past a lot of those single-piece models that they give you, they're going to be in scale with the Ironwood Metals multi-part pewter models. And therefore I feel they work just fine in standard games. That's my opinion on that. However, you do get two premium multi-part plastic models in the starter set, and that one of them is this Hellbringer here. And as you can see right off the bat, the two are not the same scale at all. This is a good deal bigger than the standard scale Hellbringer Prime. This is not in scale with the rest. They do make some models that are what they call museum scale. And my best guess, because I don't own one, is that these are done in that museum scale. They look great, a bit more detailed, nice display pieces, but not much past that. Now, real quick tangent aside here, the Battletech miniature game and the Battletech role-playing game synergize very well with each other. So if you wanted to run a role-playing game where everybody's a mech warrior, you could do all the role-playing stuff there. Modify a bit for mech warrior health in the miniature game, and then you could run basically a miniature type game with the players controlling their own mechs, and then you controlling the enemy stuff. And you could basically do mech combat using the miniature system and the role-playing game stuff utilizing the role-playing game system, and it'll synergize very well. The reason I bring that up is because you could take the museum scale, if this is indeed museum scale, which I believe it feels like it would be, because that scale is a bit bigger. You could take something like this and use it as player character stuff. There's not that many out there, so they don't have much in terms of options, but if that is an option for them, then they could use that as their player model. It's just an idea, not something that is necessary, because like I said, you're not going to find like a Hunchback in museum scale, for example. But anyways, that's just one little thought process behind these bigger scale models. Now on the flip side, we have smaller scale. We have, I believe all Battle Force models are smaller scale. I believe this is the Battle Force scale. And when you look at this model down here that I'm comparing the Hellbringer to, this is a 100-ton Kodiak. It's supposed to be bigger indeed than the Hellbringer, and the Hellbringer stands above it massively. So that's a smaller scale. The thing is, it doesn't specifically state it's a smaller scale on the box. So these are pretty cool. I kind of like them because there's really not much assembly at all involved in these guys. Very little. But they are a smaller scale. So be careful with that. And the reason I say that is because in a very similar box set, you can get standard scale stuff kind of put together. You know, multiple mechs in one pack. So you have to be careful. The Battle Force stuff seems to be, and I could be incorrect, but all the Battle Force stuff I've seen seems to be the smaller scale. So you have the small scale, you have your standard 6mm scale, I believe, and then you have larger, possibly museum scale. The two that work for gaming really are your Battle Force scale and your standard scale. There's really not enough of these big guys to work. And then, just as an aside, ArmorCast used to make back in the day, and I would love to get a hold of it, basically the equivalent of 40K Titan scale, essentially mechs. Really big Battletech mechs. They made the Atlas, they made the Timberwolf, and they made the Mad Dog, at the very least. I don't know if they made any more. And they made some elemental battle armor in that scale as well. It was really cool. It was back when I was a kid, so I was never able to get one because they were expensive. And I'd love to get my hands on one of them nowadays. But anyways, that's an aside. That's a fourth scale, if you will, but I don't have it here to show you. So anyways, that's just a little ramble on Battletech scale. Just pay attention to what you're ordering. Unless you see it say museum scale or something like that, you're not going to have to worry about accidentally purchasing something this size. There's just too few of them. And pretty much you're going to have to order directly from Ironwood Metals for that. I don't think anybody carries that. The Battle Force stuff, if it says Battle Force, do a little bit of research into the pack just to make sure that it is this scale. And if you want that, great. If you don't, move on. But the bulk of the stuff you're going to find, especially in blister form, is going to be your standard scale stuff. So remember, if you're going to get the Battletech introductory box set, these guys are in scale. So all those mechs are usable, at least in my opinion. Anyways, that's it for this ramble. So thanks for sticking through it. And until the next one, take it easy.